Good afternoon, students. Today we'll be talking about Aristotle's Poetics. I'll try to explain you in a very simple and easy language. I hope you will understand. The Poetics was most probably intended to be a reply to Plato's condemnation of poetry and poets. Plato, in his description of the ideal republic, had found serious fault with poetry and poets. He was primarily interested in constructing an ideal state. He aimed at making everything, including art and poetry. He found fault with poetry on the ground that it tended to lower the morals of the people. He attacked poets like Homer and Hesiod on the ground that they misrepresented gods and showed them as revengeful, lustful, cruel, and as waging war among themselves. Thus, poetry, according to Plato, told lies about the next world. Plato convicted poets of immoral teaching, and he condemned the tragedians and comedians for imitating unworthy objects. According to Plato, poets should be eliminated from the ideal state because their writings have no connection with reality and they live in imagination. But Aristotle's thinking was totally different from Plato. He wrote Poetics in order to defend poetry. Aristotle divided Poetics into three parts. These are mimesis, different genres, and catharsis. Aristotle's Poetics start with mimesis. He defends poetry in mimesis. According to Plato, poets live in imagination and hence they live in falsehood. Their thoughts are unreal. Poets never give any knowledge through poetry. They are useless for the society. But Aristotle defends poetry and says in Mimesis that imagination does not make society better or worse. In fact, it is useful for the society. Aristotle says it is not about what was or what is, but what ought to be. According to Aristotle, the capability of imagining is inside us, and this capability of imagining makes human different from animal. Aristotle does not look upon the arts as a slavish copy of this material world. He interpreted mimesis or imitation as a representation of the visible world and its objects, an individual approach to this world. Aristotle's views of imitation or mimesis was a kind of idealized picture of life and of human beings. Now, let's talk about different genres. In different genre, Aristotle talks about tragedy. Aristotle divided tragedy into six parts. These are plot, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and song. In Poetics, Aristotle defines tragedy as the imitation of an action that is serious and also as having magnitude, complete in itself. He continues tragedy as a form of drama which arouses pity and fear. So, tragedy should arouse pity and fear in the mind of the audience, and it is the imitation of an action that is serious and complete in itself. Every tragedy must have six parts, which I told these are plot, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and song. Plot is the most important among the other parts of tragedy. Plot is the story, it is the structure of tragedy. Next comes character. The elements of characters are goodness, appropriateness, consistency, and heroic. In goodness, Aristotle says the main character or the protagonist should have some goodness, should have some good characteristics that make him different from common people. Then comes appropriateness. The character needs to be represented as it is. For instance, in a tragedy, if there is a character of king, he should represent himself as a king. If there is a villain character, he should represent himself as a villain. There should be appropriateness. He must express the qualities of a villain. Next, consistency. Consistency in character is very necessary. Aristotle says the role of character should not be changed without any reason. Means, suppose there is a character in tragedy and his name is Nobo. He is very good, loyal, we see from the very beginning. He cannot be so bad suddenly. He cannot represent as a bad character suddenly without any reason. Next comes heroic. According to Aristotle, the character needs to be one of us. Means the main character should not represent as someone who is totally different from us. He must have some good qualities or heroic qualities that make him different from other characters. The audience or the reader should find themselves in him. Aristotle used the word hamartia. Remember it. No matter how good a person is, he always has some bad qualities. Hamartia means tragic flaw or error of the protagonist in a literary tragedy. For example, the 2010 Bollywood movie Ashiki 2, where Rahul Jaikar, the main protagonist, who had a powerful voice, was a very good singer, but he had some bad qualities, like heavy drinking alcohol, bad temperament, which led his downfall, isn't it? Now let's talk about thought. Well, it is the inner questioning that goes on inside the mind of a character that makes him choose a certain decision. That is the thought. The main character is thinking before taking a certain decision. Okay. Next comes diction. It is the language, means the language or dialogues of tragedy should be great, stylish. Music. The presence of chorus should be there in music. The presence of chorus should be in a tragedy. Okay. Tragedy, who are called as tragedy? Oh, sorry, who are called as chorus? Chorus are group of singers. Okay. And last, spectacle. Aristotle talks about spectacle. It has the least importance according to Aristotle. Spectacle is the decoration. Spectacle includes all aspects of the tragedy that contribute to its effects, costume, scenery, the gesture of the actors and actresses. Now, let's talk about catharsis. In a drama, catharsis is a release of emotional tension after an overwhelming experience, resulting in the purification of the emotions through watching or reading a tragedy. Tragedy ends with sad ending or sad scene, but it purifies our emotions. Hero often dies at the end, isn't it? We feel pity and fear through watching a tragedy. Catharsis is the purification of our emotions which arouses or evokes in our mind after watching or reading a tragedy.